How We Make Movies is brought to you by Microsoft Surface, Assimilate, Azo, and hosted by the film collective WeMakeMovies.org. Hello and welcome back to How We Make Movies. I'm your host, Amanda Lippert, and today's guests are Christian Tureaud and David Salzberg, the directors of The Hornet'S Nest. It's a film that follows Peabody and Emmy Award-winning journalist Mike Boettcher and his son Carlos in Afghanistan to cover the U.S. combat troops on the front lines. What starts out as an effort to reconnect with his son becomes a remarkable true story and fight for survival for all. Please welcome David and Christian.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in today, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Can you tell our audience a little bit about your film? How would you describe it?
We would describe this a immersive experience. It's a very unique film. It's groundbreaking in the fact that this is not a documentary. We never use the word documentary. We feel that using the word documentary puts you in a box, and we don't want to be in a box. So we call this a groundbreaking feature film using real footage. It's an unprecedented movie event.
Now, at what point did you get involved in the film? You're the directors, but you weren't involved from the very beginning. How does that work?
No, they had started. Mike's had a long career, and he had made a decision back in the 2007, 2008 that he was going to make a film with the troops as the focal point of the subject matter. And he's a neutral guy as far as journalists go, and they started shooting some stuff as early as 2008. We got involved in 2011, and they were at the final phase of shooting, and we were able to actually do some additional pickups because they were still in Afghanistan when we got involved. And they didn't really want to make a film that involved them as a father-son. They wanted to make it specifically about the troops. And it took us a little bit of time to convince them to let their story was important from the perspective, which actually made it, more of what we wanted to do, an immersive feature rather than,
And what was their perspective, if you could describe that?
Their perspective was really being on the front lines with soldiers and Marines and trying to let the American public know who they were as people. Instead of just another number. Instead of the way news covers them right now, they wanted to get in and they wanted to know them as people, to let the American public know them as people.
In a lot of documentaries about the subject matter and in the news, the journalists aren't really the topic of discussion. It's generally everything that's going on around them. You guys made this film very different, though, by making the heart of the story revolve around the journalist and his son. Is that right?
Well, we thought there was a parallel between the experience that Mike has had as a journalist over his career. Was he put up with a lot of the same sacrifices the soldiers and Marines, these people that keep deploying, had put up with. Fractured families, problems at home, problems with their kids. And we thought there was a real parallel that he had experienced. When we started going through the footage, we could really tell that was going to be an important part of the heart of the film. And we were fortunate that they actually let us do it. Let us weave them into the story, which is the stuff we ended up picking up later in the shooting.
Do you guys want to see some clips from the film?
Yeah.
All right, let's watch it.
Your measure's not found in how much time you have on this earth. It's what you do with the time that you have. These people have suffered for too long. Change the course of history.
Go.
Ask him what this wire's for. I don't like that at all.
I don't think you're Taliban.
No one's ever dared to go in there.
I don't think anybody was prepared for what it was going to be like. Some of us had the worst in mind.
They're fighting not only for this war on terror, they're fighting for their fellow soldiers.
Don't forget me. Over. Follow me. Let's go. Covering fire.
They gave their lives for the people back home. Whether those people agree with this war or not, that's who they gave their lives for.
Watching that, it's obvious that there's no way to get around showing violence and the danger that these guys were in. But one thing that struck me about the film was the way you portrayed the characters, and I say characters, I mean the real soldiers that were highlighted in this, and you were able to humanize them without showing a lot of violence, as much as you would expect. Why did you make that choice?
Early on when we saw the footage, when there's footage that we have that's graphically violent, and Christian and I spent a lot of time discussing this because we wanted to make sure that we honored the families of the fallen. We have a film that has people that have actually really, their day is in the film. They lost their lives in a day that we were shooting. And it's not just the 6 main Army characters, there's 33. There's 32 males and 1 female. And when we started focus grouping the film and meeting with the people in the film and the families, there was just no way that we could leave it in and be respectful. So we tried as filmmakers to utilize music and the audio bites that we had that were real to still tell the story and still show the violence without physically showing the end result.
Now, you mentioned focus groups. What importance did focus groups play in the, I guess, marketing of this film and also the development and the, final editing?
Yeah, we didn't use traditional focus groups like NRGs or Nielsen's like most Hollywood films do, where they get men, women, black, white, everyone in the room kind of. We went to the soldiers, the Marines, and their families, and we used them as our focus group. And we wanted this to be as real as possible because this is the first time ever that this level of access has ever been granted, where a journalist actually was on the front lines with the soldiers and Marines in a battle, Taliban all around, bullets flying at them multiple times. So it had to be real. And in order to make it real, we had to have them give us their input. And we got unbelievable notes from them. We got notes that us as filmmakers, not being there, never could have gotten otherwise. We got notes from widows who were watching their husband's last day on camera and seeing what they went through, and they gave us some unbelievable notes that we incorporated. So that's why this film is so real.
You talk about the access that you had. One of the first things that I thought when I saw this film was, how could they show this footage? You have to have military permission, and there must be so much red tape, and there's also, so many restrictions on showing cameras or showing soldiers on camera in uniform, and how you're able to credit them. How did you get past all that, or did the military put restrictions on your film that changed the way the story could be told?
They actually, they actually didn't. It really started with Mike. The fact that Mike is this legendary Peabody Emmy Award-winning guy who really is like Ernie Pyle, reincarnated. Ernie Pyle being the journalist from World War II that spent the whole war in Europe covering soldier stories, and then he was actually killed in action before the war ended in Japan, and Mike really says he's him. So Mike being having embedded with these soldiers over 35 years, and he had connections at certain places like the Pentagon, and he had the credibility in the background that he had been just, he had been neutral, he had not made it a political statement when he was with them, and that gave him a different access and credibility, which gave us a very different perspective to work from. The end film, PAO is Public Affairs Office, and you have to run your film through Public Affairs Office to get it approved, to get any support from the military if you ever want to work with them again. And we both have worked with Public Affairs Office on a television show we worked on in the past and had dealt with them and kind of had an understanding of what we would be able to do. But it really started with Mike in the Pentagon with General Campbell, right?
Yeah, I mean, we really were pretty free to tell the story we wanted to tell, but I believe they felt it would be respectful, and because it was Mike, and knew that Mike wouldn't lean left, he wouldn't lean right, it wouldn't be pro-war, it wouldn't be anti-war, and that was, from a storytelling perspective, the way we wanted to tell it. We wanted to be apolitical, right down the middle.
This is such a controversial subject. How could a film about this subject matter possibly not be controversial? How did you make it apolitical?
Well, I think it starts with our relationship as, in this case, being co-directors, and we come from vastly different backgrounds. Obviously, you can tell I'm maybe a New Englander.
Maybe. I mean,
Boston.
it might have come across.
And that's actually very funny when we're down south, but in Christian, grew up in Texas and Ann Arbor, Michigan, and grew up with a little bit more conservative background than me, and we have worked together on a number of projects in the past. And the balance of having someone that you have that has a very different perspective than maybe you were brought up with, and the open mind to listen to it really played a part in how this turned out. I mean, I think.
Yeah, I think it was our respect for each other as we went back and forth, and then
we did too.
Mike's integrity as a journalist, as a multiple Emmy-winning journalist, wanting to just make it real. That was our whole goal, was to make it real. And frankly, if there would have been things in the footage that would have taken us one way or another, maybe we would have went there. But what you see is what these soldiers and Marines are doing. I mean, they're there saving children's lives. Children that are, you saw the scene. I mean, there's one scene where there's a roadside bomb, and the Taliban try to kill our guys, but they don't. They actually severely wound 6 children that were just
playing on the side
of the road. And we bring our medevacs in. We save their life. We take them to an American hospital, not an Afghani hospital, because they would have never gotten the proper treatment. They would have died. And we save those kids' lives. And it's highlighted in the film.
I remember one of the things about that film that touched me was when they asked for the kids' names. Everyone was like, we didn't even think to ask for their names. We were just trying to save their lives.
Yeah.
They acted so quickly. You know, we talked before about some of the focus groups that you had, and then you just said that you had, really great access with government permissions, but you had a lot of support from other organizations as well, including some corporate organizations and nonprofits. How did that help in the marketing of the film? And it hasn't even been released yet.
Wow, it's been amazing.
It's a long story.
Try to make it quick. David and I's background, we utilize brands and corporations, brands, charities. We use them as partners, as true partners. They have huge distribution platforms. They have huge marketing budgets. And if you create a product that has a message that resonates with their message, it's simpatico. And they want to get that message out, and they're willing to give you that platform. So that's what we did with this. We went to the USO. The USO is the seal of approval in the military as it relates to entertainment. And early on, we went to the USO. We showed them the film. They were very proud of it. It became the first documentary ever endorsed by the USO. It's the only time you'll hear me say documentary. But it was the first documentary in history ever endorsed by the USO in 88 years. And that's a big statement. And when you ask them why, they say because it's non-political, because it's not pro-war or anti-war. You're just showing it like it is. And no one's ever been able to do that before. So we got the USO's approval. Their logo is on the back of our film. That opened up a lot of doors for us and a lot of credibility for us. When you say the USO's endorsed this, then people say, oh, wow, great. Maybe I should take a look at this too. And then all these military charities that are out there, many of them doing amazing work. And we had a lot of great people on our team that kind of vetted all of those opportunities. So we're aligned with 20, 30 military charities and corporations right now who are supporting our message to get us out to the market.
When we do, we both have background in brand and entertainment. We were both at Mandalay with Peter Guber. former chairman of Sony, and we actually ran that division. And people used to say it's product placement and it's getting the brand in the visible eye of the public. And we learned a very different thing with that. It's more the emotional connection of what the story is, even if the brand or charity is nowhere in the film.
How does that work? Why would a corporation or big company with a lot of money give filmmakers money and not put their name on it and not want their product, placed in it and,
Well, it's different having their name on it than it is to have their product in it. And, having made other films in the past where we had major corporations, when they were inherently in the story, we would leave them in and tie them in both in the film and with their messaging. The reason that big corporations, and we've been very fortunate with folks like American Airlines that supported us, they saw the film, or they saw a cut of the film, and they went, oh my God, this is completely within our messaging statement for how we want to give back to veterans and their families. And then they would rattle off all the things that they're doing, or the charities too. They would say, the film's not state of the art, it's state of the heart. And the heart of the film would hit their messaging. And then it's very easy. Well, I mean, again, our background is beyond making a film. We also have extensive experience marketing them and packaging them. And it's allowed us to, when you go in as a filmmaker and it's you first, hey, my film, and you're making it up, you're Coke. And they go, okay, well, really, what's in it for me? How does it help us? But if you go in and say, hey, this story, whether it's the script, harder to sell, or it's a finished film, hey, we know what your brand stands for, and these messages that you stand for and what you're doing in this space fits what this film stands for. And
it's called reverse engineering.
Yeah.
You reverse engineer the result that they want to have happen. You start with them first.
So you have them in mind before you ever approach them the entire time you're making the film?
No.
No?
No, not so much. We're making the film because it's all about the film first.
Right.
It's all about the storytelling first. But if you have a film, what you have to do is figure out, okay, you made this film, you have this messaging and this storytelling, who's it going to resonate with? What type of corporations, charities, whatever it might be, that we can go and talk to that have that same messaging, want to deliver that same experience to their audience?
They're part of the bullseye. When you make a movie, you set out with, if you set out with you're looking for a film that's going to have an audience of 27 people, that's what you're going to get, 27 people. But if you set out and you're looking at a core audience that really, the messaging of the story is going to resonate with a large group, hopefully, it's a 20, 30, 40 million person group, there are people that already are servicing that group, whether they're selling them product or they're supporting them with charitable endeavors. You want to go to those people first. But again, sometimes it's by design and sometimes it's by, divine intervention. As you make the movie, you'll find there's people that go, oh my God, and we weren't even thinking about them. And they're like, we're in, we want to do something, we want to help. And
it's a perfect example. So American Airlines is a sponsor of our film. They are the official airlines of our film. We were at a screening in DC. We had no idea that the head guy from American Airlines Military Affairs was in the audience. And after the screening, we're walking out of a Q&A, and he grabs us by the arm and he said, hi, Jim Palmersheim, American Airlines. He said, how'd you guys get here from LA? I said, we bought plane tickets. He said, no more. He said, American is going to be your partner. This is good for our country. This is the type of thing we stand for to support our troops. We want to be your official airlines. How does that sound? I said, we love it. We're both million milers on American. We love American.
Or at least we will be.
Yeah. And hey, if you have a film.
They didn't care about that though. They're a great example. So American, the guys that run it, one guy, Jim, is an Army pilot, former Army pilot, now he's a captain on American Airlines, and they have a big military initiative. And they just were like, look, do you guys know that we do this thing called Skyball, and we give hundreds of thousands of dollars to military charities, and we didn't know. Then he said we do this other thing called Snowball Express, which gives kids of Gold Star families, which are families that have lost a loved one in action, they give the kids this 5-day event where they pay for the whole thing, and they bring them to Dallas at Christmas, and they start at every American hub in the country, and they fly these people in. They do this amazing stuff.
It's like 5,000 families.
Wow.
So they hit our state of the heart. They, we saw what they're doing, and then the film matches their messaging. It's a Reese's peanut butter cup. They had the chocolate, we had the peanut butter, we're making something.
That sounds delicious. You're making me hungry. That was a really happy accident. I love when things like that, come out of synchronicity and just, people who are on the same path end up running into each other and are able to help each other. But for filmmakers that might be watching this that maybe don't have the mentors and the experience that you do, if they were interested in learning more about marketing their films in this way and bringing on partners, how would they go about contacting companies, and who would they contact, and what kind of package should they put together?
It's everything is about relationships.
Yeah.
Right. So hopefully you can find someone somewhere that has some relationship into wherever you're trying to get into. But if you don't, cold calling works too. You can cold call. If you feel your product is great, you're going to go out there and you're going to bang down every door possible. So you're going to do whatever it takes. And again, I think it's just trying to find, like David said, the peanut butter and the chocolate. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it's just not going to work. So, you got to figure out ways to go make it happen. But ultimately, like relationships.
Yeah.
It's better if it's true, too, you know what I mean? If the messaging really is a match, it really helps you get where you're going. So one thing that we also utilize a lot is social media. So we're active in our own success and being out in front of the stories that we're doing. And, again, we had some good starting points with this film as far as the groups we could work with, because if you look at the U.S. military and the fact that they accepted the film and we were doing them a favor, and favor is not the right word, we were doing them a service by telling the stories in a neutral way, we were able to look at who touches them along their way and who supports them, and that would give us kind of a roadmap that he and I would, whether it's cold calling, which we've done a lot of, or whether it's getting on a Facebook page or a Twitter page and then connecting with them. And it can, here's the thing, it's just being committed to your story and then saying who does this story reach, and then the great thing is if they have audience.
Yeah.
That's right now with the way social media works. These big brands have 5, 10, 20 million people at their constituents, and if you can get them to activate, it's really a great thing for your film.
So I imagine that having corporate sponsors and even charity or other organizations coming on as sponsors and partners with your film, you might be able to benefit through free flights or financially, but that seems like the gold mine is their audience and connecting with the people that you want to see this film and want to know about this film. You told me before that there were some naysayers just who thought that this film wouldn't have a market. Can you talk about how you're proving them wrong?
Well, I think you can't be all things to all people. There's people that hit 300 and they're in the Hall of Fame in baseball. So that means 7 out of 10 times they strike out or go out, get out. So there were people and there are people, and that doesn't bother us because you have to believe in your product. And I think, but going back to what David was saying about the brands, it's all about momentum as well. Because once you get somebody on board, then somebody else wants to come on board, and it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. And it just, you get this momentum that starts taking place. We made a conscious choice. Film festivals are a great example. We actually, early on, sent this film to all the top film festivals. And we were all excited, and everyone was like, who was making this film thought it was really something special, and they said, internally, we were all like, wow, we're going to win this festival, we're going to get this, we're going to get that, it's going to be so cool, we'll go to Sundance, we'll go to New York, Tribeca, we'll go to Berlin. We got turned down by everybody. And it kind of blew us away, and we said, how could we be turned down? Everyone's loving this film. And then once we kind of had some conversations with the festival directors, they said, it's not your film. They said, your film's unbelievable. They said, we've never seen anything like it. We just don't know what it is. It's not a documentary, but it's also not, there's no actors. So it's not a scripted film either. It's this hybrid thing that we've never even seen before. And they said, frankly, there's 2 reasons to go in film festivals: to get exposure, to get distribution. We were fortunate that we had both already, pretty much locked up. And we then said to ourselves, you know, we really don't need to go the festival route. It's just not for us. The other thing is 6 Americans lost their life in this film on camera, and we didn't feel it was a way to honor them or their families to have people, critics, judging it and breaking it down and saying this and saying that. It just wasn't a way to honor them. So what we did is we kind of, because we're marketers as well, we turned it upside down, and we said, okay, when these festivals started calling us, we said, you know what we're going to do? We'll come to your festival, but we won't enter competition. If you either open your festival or close your festival with our film, we then will bring our partners, we'll bring Gold Stars, we'll bring soldiers, we'll bring press, and we'll do this whole event honoring the military and honoring America. And it was a huge success. We did it on both coasts, but we weren't in competition.
Which film festivals participated in that? So
there's a festival in D.C. called the GI Festival, and for obvious reasons, it's in D.C., and we had unbelievable support from the military and political world, and people came out, and it was a huge success. And then we did one on the left coast, which was the Napa Film Festival, which was interesting because you would think D.C. Film Festival, maybe a little more conservative, supporting the military. Napa, being a little more liberal maybe. Napa was amazing. 500 people, the whole town came out, people from all over. And the neat thing about this film is when you see it, and you've seen it, you come out of it, it's not left or right. It's not pro-war, anti-war. So the left loves it for different reasons than the right loves it, but they both love it. So it's a pretty fortunate thing.
I think at the end of the day, this is a really heartwarming film about humans who really believe in something and are willing to risk their lives for it. And whether you're left or right, if you're a humanist, and that's, you know, the heart of who you are, it's really hard not to look at this film and be moved by it.
It's interesting you say that. When we were doing our focus groups, we also had some connections to colleges. And we've had a lot of requests by colleges to bring the film there because it fits in so many different aspects of what students are learning, especially whether it's filmmaking, communications, journalism, music. I mean, it runs the gamut, history. And we were at an event. We got invited to Stanford. And Christian and I, one of the command officers was a national security fellow there. He helped us with the film. The officers all thought the film would help their people, which is why they helped us. So we went to Stanford, and we were with Dr. William Perry, and we were on stage with him and Mike Boettcher in this.
Dr. William Perry is former Secretary of Defense under Bill Clinton.
Yeah, he was actually at Hiroshima as a young lieutenant, so he's a leading advocate on anti-nuclear weapons, and he and his wife are in their 80s, and he's an unbelievable guy. And we're on stage, and we were expecting, we've been told at certain points, we might get a protest here or there, in which would spin into a win, hopefully, but we'd be out there with them protesting. But we haven't had that. But on stage, there was one woman, and we had a mix of military students. Was really a
EU professors.
Yeah, people that by design are on the Hoover Institute because they're left. And this one woman in the audience got up and she directed the question at us, and it was very funny. She goes, because they had like podiums. You go up to a podium and you're going to ask a question, and she said, "Is this film a war film or a peace film?" And we were thinking, we didn't usually have a good response for most questions, but we didn't have one. And we both just looked at each other and we kind of at the same time said, it's a people film. And the audience gave us a standing ovation. And then we kind of felt that what we were being told was really accurate, that we had done something unique that was about, it's the story, it's the people, not, again, it's ordinary man or woman in extraordinary circumstance, one of the 7 basic stories. And that's what we really set out to do, and hopefully the audience, when it comes out in theaters, will think the same, and will create something that's successful that helps these folks.
I was going to say the other thing that came out of Stanford, which was really cool, was that there was one particular professor from Europe. She was an EU professor, a female, and she sent a letter after she had to leave and catch a plane to go back or wherever to Europe, and she sent a letter that said that she opposed the war. She feels America is imperialistic and occupiers, and our military, that's who we are. She said, but after watching this film, it changed her stereotype because the media doesn't show what you're going to see and hear. The media shows you bits and bytes. You get 10 seconds, 20 seconds, maybe a minute. You don't get real storytelling. And she said it changed her entire perception of the U.S. military, which was amazing.
You guys also told me earlier that Mike Boettcher was teaching a class. He's also a professor, so he was teaching while he was over there.
He's Indiana Jones. He's the real deal.
He is.
He's Indiana Jones. Mike is he's a graduate of Oklahoma University. He's a professor at Oklahoma University.
He's an Okie.
He's being inducted into the Oklahoma State Hall of Fame this year. He's already in the OU Hall of Fame. His Emmys are at OU. He's an Okie through and through. And he literally leaves his class, flies to Afghanistan, and Skypes them from the front lines. Teaches his class from the front lines. I mean, it's the real deal, Indiana Jones. It's amazing.
Okay, there was some other technology behind that, isn't there? Like he was using Skype, but he also had to transfer satellite phones. Can you talk to us about that? That's, I mean, huge as far as...
The satellite phones are another whole story. So Mike would basically march all day with the troops, and in horrible conditions. Some in Helmand they were in 130-degree temperatures, carrying 80 pounds of gear with the Marines, and in Kuna they were in.
And he's 59.
Yeah,
he's still humping it with these 23, 24-year-old guys. And he's keeping up. It's pretty amazing.
He literally. So there's Marines in the 2-8 Marines that he was embedded with the fathers of the guys that he was serving with now in 2010. He had been embedded with their dads in Beirut in 1983. So the technology, back to satellite phones. So he's uplinking, he's marching all day, then writing the stories, sending that to ABC. Then he's doing a class. He didn't sleep for like 4 months at one point, which played into the film with the Carlos in bed with the Marines. And I won't tell you it, but you have to see it because it does play in, because he was exhausted. But the crazy thing with the sat phones is the stories we would hear. And as we talked to the families, we were talking to some of the families that lost their son or their brother or husband. And they would tell us stories about Mike on the sat phone, where he would have 20 Marines lined up at midnight at his tent. And he would let them use the phone because they couldn't talk to their families. And they would tell us stories about the last time they talked to their family member was he let them use the phone. And there's one story in particular, one of the sisters told us that really was motivated. But this kid, David Hall, used the phone, and he was on, and he said they each had 2 minutes, because that was allocated time. And he gave them a minute of it up, because the other guys had kids. And the guys that were single would give a minute up. So, sorry I'm getting moved, but...
Me too.
And then she hadn't talked to Mike, so we put her on the phone with Mike, and it was like David was back. And that's been a big motivator. Sorry to get really... caught up, but we're passionate about this thing, and when you meet the people, when you meet living people in your film, which is a very tough thing to deal with, right? Because you have rights holders and people. It's different if you're making scripted, but if you're dealing with the real people, and in very intense circumstances, you have to show a certain level of respect to whoever the story's about. Whether it's about these soldiers or if you're with Nelson Mandela before he passed away or anybody else that's a real hero in society, somebody that's doing something beyond them, you have to kind of respect it and give it back. So sorry for the long answer.
No, I appreciate it. And I think it's really important also for filmmakers to constantly know what technology is out there, and for a lot of documentarians, getting footage back to the U.S., especially large amounts of it, like you guys were dealing with 500 hours of footage, and for that to be sent back to the U.S. and not be lost. At Sundance this year, I interviewed a filmmaker who was making a film in Iran, and she was constantly having to hide her footage, not knowing if at any point over the 5 years that she was filming, any of her footage would be confiscated and she wouldn't be able to finish her film. And so for situations like that, a sat phone would be really, really helpful.
We used couriers. We had couriers, and Carlos was the main courier.
Carlos
Boettcher, who came literally off the plane at LAX and came right to editorial and started working with us. He's amazing, an amazing kid, an amazing Emmy-winning.
He had a huge Army sack opened it up, hard drives. 500 hours of hard drives.
We've also had a film in our past that we worked on where a can of 35 went missing, and your insurance, you know, 5,000 or 10,000 in insurance does not cover a day of shooting. And we have had that happen to us, and that was something that we, you know, try to avoid.
I'm sure you had plenty of other footage to work around, but I'm sure every minute of that footage was also precious.
It was, because once you figured out the challenge here, it's taken us 3 years to get to this point. And the film has continued to evolve as we met with the family members. And what happened was, when we first reached out to Gold Star families who had lost their loved ones, or the soldiers or Marines that were actually in those battles, they didn't want to talk to us. They shunned us. And they said, another Hollywood SOB, I don't even want to talk to you.
At any point, were you afraid or concerned that you would get criticism for profiting off of other people's loss?
Absolutely. And it was part of this whole process of bringing them into the fold. We're all family members now. We love each other. I mean, right now in Dallas, Texas, we have one of the mothers and fathers who lost their son, one of the 6 that were lost in the movie, Terry and Elizabeth Burgess. They're in Dallas right now, tomorrow, going to give their testimony in front of Trinity Church to talk about how when they heard that Brian was killed, Terry, the father, he didn't want to continue to live. And he met us and said that it was a gift from God, that he now has a reason to live, and that he represents 7,000 other families that don't have a movie about their son. And he wants to take it to the rest of the country. So he's literally in front of a church tomorrow giving a testimony about this. We're filming that with the pastor, and then that's going to go out to the community and the faith community, because there's such a strong faith message here with this film. You know, it's sacrifice. It's greater than self. It's giving your life for something that you believe in that is greater than you.
I really appreciate you guys sharing as much as you have with us about the marketing of this film. And I think that there's a genius to it, the way that you were able to take something that, you know, could have just done really well at festivals or been another war movie, and I've seen so many of them, and really targeted specific groups and families that will not only get behind it, but share it and continue to allow the audience to grow. And it hasn't even been released yet. So it's really amazing to me. I'm also very curious about the fundraising and how the film was paid for, you know, to get to the point where it's very expensive to send people over to Afghanistan, I'm sure, and to, you know, pay editors to look through that much footage. And then, you know, you guys have to figure out ways to pay for the marketing. What was the budget, if you're allowed to say that, and how were you able to raise those funds?
I'll answer that. The budget was
the
less.
Business guy right
well,
here.
no, the budget was less than the catering budget on Lone Survivor to physically make the film. I mean, I'm not going to give you an exact amount, because what happened was initially it was not going to be the film that it is, and after we started working and meeting with these families and spending the time that we did in really digging into what the story was going to be, there was no money left. And Christian and I are pretty good packagers, and we have a lot of relationships with people around town, that we thought that the underlying story would really resonate with them, be it editors or, you know, people in the music business. And as we started to show them, they all had the same response that the audience had, because we had like a rough cut we were working with, and they said, we're in, we want to do something, and we're like, there's no equity, there's no points to give up, it's a credit, and, you know, we didn't know we were signing them up for years, but we didn't know with Mike we were signing up for years, but it goes back to the thing about sometimes the story is bigger than the movie, and we were very fortunate that we had a lot of people in Hollywood that aren't traditional Hollywood that jumped on board and helped us. And then we had people outside of Hollywood that, because we didn't raise more equity. We never raised more equity.
No. We've had people for going on 20 months now that have worked for free. And that doesn't happen. in this town or really any business, but they've worked for free, and I mean editors, graphics people,
Emmy-winning,
music
Oscar-nominated
people,
folks.
Oscar-nominated, Emmy-winning teams. I mean, we've probably got 100 people around the country in various aspects of soundtrack, merchandising, marketing, editorial.
Wine Cactus are a great example.
Yeah, Winona Judd and Cactus Mosier, who are here tonight in L.A., you know, she's a 5-time Grammy winner. She's a living legend. Yeah. And they saw the movie and said, we're in. We have to be a part of this. We're inspired to write a song about what we saw, and they haven't been paid a dime. And they were just in 2 weeks ago in Nashville doing a music video for us, spent their whole day doing a music video. We sent out Entertainment Tonight to cover them and do a sit-down interview about why would they do this? What moved them to be a part of this? And so we're really proud of that so many people have rallied to come together to tell this story, because everyone believes it's important for the country. When you see it, you'll get it. It's not about left or right, it's about being American.
As a filmmaker, it really just basically says, look, if you have a passion about your film, where there's a will, there's a way. And if you don't have the money, and you hear about other films every year, you know, someone makes it for 10 grand and they give blood and they do all these other crazy things. We didn't physically give blood, but
we gave blood, sweat, and tears is what we gave.
And what we did the same way that we work with the brands and the charities, we went to folks, and you know, some of them are really super left. I mean, and some of them are super right, and not as many right in Hollywood. But when we went outside of Hollywood to get our P&A money, we went.
What is P&A money?
When you make a film, you have these, you know, equity, and you have debt, and you have the things that you do when you physically get someone else to put money up, or you know, give you something that gets the film made.
Your firstborn child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be post-production. It could be money. It could be in kind. It could be travel. But all the elements that you need in your budget to physically make the film. So you know, so you have development, and you're trying to make it, and then you get to the point where you're going to shoot, and then you're physically making it, and then it gets to the point where usually most filmmakers are out of the game, is when you, unless you're like a huge director or producer, someone takes the film away from you and they become the marketing team that tells you now what to do. And we've been on that side of the table too, both in small productions and big productions, and we're like, look, this one's our baby, and we're not going to just give it away. So what we do is P&A is print and ad money. And when you see billboards and television spots and everything that goes along with getting your message out, so the film is the party. And then you have to send out invites.
Right.
Or you have a party that no one comes to, right? And there's a lot of beautiful films that get made every year that no one sees. And there's some films every year that get made that a lot of people shouldn't see.
Not the truth.
And the thing is, you can't buy your way out. The thing is, with the making of the film, you know, and there's been great marketing teams, you know, films that really aren't really incredibly great, but they make a big box office. But at the end of the day, if it's a really good film, it will find your audience, and you just have to, you know, as much as you can stay with it, and it's not being a control freak, but as much as you can.
A little bit it is.
I was going to say, I don't know if you guys.
A little bit it is. I mean, the other thing is, besides the making of the movie, having these folks work for almost 20 months for free for credits, we now transition to the next phase of distribution and marketing. We have studio level national PR team. Richard's in the audience right now. Our local PR team, our social team, our marketing advisors, our faith team, I mean, our media buyers, everyone on our team is studio level. They get gigs for huge movies. They're paid a lot of money to do what they do. They're all working at a very much discount because they believe in the message of this film. So we have that on this level as well. It's very exciting. It's humbling, actually. It's very cool.
You know, it's especially humbling knowing that there's a huge lawsuit going on in Hollywood right now, which I'm sure you've heard about, where an intern is looking for back pay. And, you know, there's so many people that donate their time and never expect to see anything from it. And then now there's this controversy of, you know, in this industry, is that right or is it not right? To think that you didn't have to use interns, but you were able to get studio-level professionals that were, you know, able to ask for large sums of money, but still willing to give their time is pretty extraordinary.
It is.
A lot of the people that we brought in were paid something at some point, maybe early on, and then there's other groups that On the production side, we just have these long relationships with them, and they wanted to be part of something that made a difference. Just like the folks in the film say they're there in Afghanistan to make a difference, they felt that this was a contribution that they could give. I'm not a, they're like I'm not a veteran, but I'm a talented editor, and I can help, and I want to help. And we got some unbelievable Jason Regaud and Sean Matthew and Brent Donis and
Mike Trella
and Ren Trella and John Brankus and Mickey at bass. All these people donated different things, and it's funny when films are really successful, people come out of the woodwork, and they were making whatever they're doing claim-wise, and it's a high-class problem. Having been with Peter and seen that before, it's just something that it goes with the territory. But the fact that we're doing so much to help others, if you were a person to come out on this one and try to make a stand, when this film is about everybody but us. It's not about us. This is beyond us. And we speak at audiences around the country about it. If you came out with this one and wanted to make a big stink that you participated in, you would be probably,
ostracized.
Yeah, I mean,
that might be the word.
I would think if you took a stand against these patriots in this country that were doing something to unite the country, and you want to be the odd person out saying we shouldn't, the Taliban are already threatening us. For real. I mean, on Facebook, they like to send us a message once in a while. So.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What have they said?
They just.
Well, David's Jewish.
Well, Salzberg, so they
you
love
have
me
a
more.
little bit of a Jewish thing.
And him being Christian.
Christian and Jewish.
There we
It's
go.
a great combination. If you want to mess with the Taliban.
But wait, can I tell you something, though? We have had an unbelievable, in this film, you have men and women. You have Black, Latino, I'm sure you have gay, which is fine, because it's don't ask, don't tell in the military, but we know we do. And you have everybody as a group, and it's about being bigger than them. And then we also have Muslims. We have interpreters and these folks that we've been overseas and worked with the Muslim population, and we have no issue with anybody's. We're in America. Right. You can be anything you want. You can be any religion you want, and the film represents that. But the Taliban, it's power thing. It's not religion. It's religion used to control. And it's with a lot of religions. It's used in a bad way. But they aren't happy, I'm sure, they're not happy because, in their view, we're occupiers. And, I guess if I was a Taliban...
They don't believe in freedom.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
And women's freedom, anybody's rights. I mean, if you disagree with the Taliban in these villages, they cut your head off. And by the way, if you were there and you were right or left, they don't care about you being right or left. They care about you're an American, and they would give you the same treatment they give their locals. And we all see the news and the stories about what they do to women that are looking for education, and and the fact that the people that live there, the Afghanis, they just want what we want. They want a safe home. Their kids to get better education and do better than them. They don't want people busting into their home, whether they're American or Taliban or anybody else. They just want their lives left alone and to live their lives. Unfortunately, they live in a place that for 1,000 years has been a hotspot for so many different groups, whether they're American or English or Russian, and they live in a tough place. And the other thing the film shows is how blessed we are to be in a place where you can, really not worry about people kicking your door in every single day from a different perspective to take your stuff. Yeah. I'm sorry to go on a tangent about that, but anyway.
We're running a little low on time, and we're about to take audience questions, but I always ask this question, and whether or not it pertains to your film or not, you guys have had the wonderful opportunity of having some wonderful mentors in your life that have helped you in your career, and I wonder if there's something that they've shared with you that you would share with our audience of independent filmmakers. If there's any one lesson that you've learned on your journey, what would you want to impart on them? There
are no rules.
Break them at your own peril.
That's a good one. No means on. That's just backwards.
That's a gooberism. That's on. Peter.
Don't ever, go over it, go around it, go under it, go through it. If you believe in it, make it happen, period. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
you get what you project. I mean, if you see, it's been really in our careers, we've worked with a lot of unique people, and we've done a lot of television. And you hear from people, whether they're an astronaut or a sports, Hall of Famer in all these different sports, or you meet people in our industry that have won a Best Picture, and they all say they saw it before it happened. They didn't know how they were going to get there, but they were projecting it in their mind to have it happen. And I think a lot of that gives you the willpower to get through, there's huge Herculean hurdles in making a movie. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're Warner Brothers and you get $100 million, it's easier. When you can buy your way around stuff, right? But if you make a movie and you're making it for a budget, a real budget, I mean, less than television budget, there's a lot of things you're going to have some ingenuity with to get yourself through it, and just be committed.
We're also sports guys, so we always go back to the sports, analogies, all the great sports stuff. I mean, I'm sure you guys played sports in your life. If you're jocks, that's just kind of your mentality. You manifest stuff. You just make it happen, no matter what. You're going to win. You have to go into it with that mind frame.
Now, initially, Mike and Carlos didn't want to be a part of the film. They're journalists. How did you convince them to become the subjects of the film?
They agree. They didn't want to be the subjects of the film because Mike's journalistic integrity, he wanted it to always be about the soldiers and Marines. And we fought him. We fought him for a long time, frankly. And we just did it. We did it, and we took the risk to do it. And Mike wasn't here with us in Hollywood making the movie. He was in Afghanistan.
Clandestine editing.
And frankly, we just said we're doing it. And we didn't tell him we were doing it. And then we showed him a cut when he came home. And he broke down, and he was very proud. And he goes, now I understand. He goes, showing it through our lens gave the film unique credibility, and it made it different than or better than anything that had ever been done before.
Okay, so we've got some Twitter questions here, and our first one comes from @ChrisGregFred, and he asks, Carlos was a no-experience journalist. How was Mike able to get him embedded to Afghanistan?
Okay, so he was a no-experience journalist, and he was in college. And Mike and Carlos had a running kind of thing going on where Carlos resented the fact that Mike had gone on all these embeds for so many years and, been away for every holiday, all the birthdays, everything else. And he said, the question's the other way around. Carlos demanded to go with Mike, and Mike didn't want him to go. But then Mike came to the realization that if he ever had a chance to make an impact on his son's life in a real meaningful way, because he was kind of, according to Mike, different from Carlos, floundering in college. And he got him through the training. They put him through some military training out in the Desert Warfare Training Center. And Mike worked his relationships at the Pentagon, and off they went.
Did they have permission from his affiliate, I think he was with ABC at the time?
No, this is the interesting thing, is Mike had worked for CNN for like 10 years, then he worked for NBC for like 20 years. And he was at NBC, and he was already a multiple Emmy-winning journalist and the best of the best. And when Carlos came to Mike and said, I'm going with or without you, I'm coming with you, I have to know you. And Mike said, okay. He went to his bosses at NBC and said, we're going to do this. And they said, no, you're not. They said 22 journalists have died, been killed and targeted in Afghanistan. The Taliban are targeting journalists.
More now.
And we won't allow you to do it. And he said, then I quit. And what happened was Mike went, once he realized, I just quit my job. I actually don't have a job. Not only do I not have a job, but how am I going to get to Afghanistan? I don't have the money to get to Afghanistan. So he went to some of his college buddies who were successful businessmen in Dallas, and he rallied them, and they put up some money to allow Mike and Carlos to go over there. And then Mike went and got approval from the Pentagon and some of his general buddies, and he got this unprecedented access. That's why the access is what it is, because it wasn't part of an initial broadcast deal. He went as a private citizen over there, and Carlos did as well. And then once they were there for a period of time, getting this footage that no one had ever seen before, ABC News called. Ben Sherwood, the president of ABC News, got a hold of Mike, and they'd been 25-year friends. And Ben said, I hear what you're getting, and we're willing to take the risk. And we wanted you to do this for us. So then Mike and Carlos started making stories and sending them back for ABC.
That's amazing.
There's an important thing in that story with the filmmaking, from a filmmaker's point of view, short answer. The calamity of having no network and bringing your son and all the stuff they went through turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because when they made their deal with the network, the fact that they were independent and they'd already had the footage, they did it on a bounty. And the bounty is you get paid a very limited overhead, but you get to keep your footage. Right? Blessing in disguise, because if they had had their deal with the other network, they would not have made that entrepreneurial type deal, which they did. And otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to
make the movie.
Well, yeah, that was it, right? No movie.
Exist.
Yeah, it wouldn't exist.
This is from me, not from here. I'm going to get to the next one in a second, but something that I don't know if anybody would think about from a filmmaker's point of view, but Carlos's mom had to have a say in this at some point.
Do we have to go there?
I mean, we don't have to, but it's just something that strikes me as a woman that, like, maybe she might have had something to say to Mike about whether or not Carlos was allowed to go on this trip.
She had a lot to say to Mike then, and I don't think she talks to Mike now.
Oh.
She feels, you have to realize that Carlos's mother and Mike divorced years ago when Carlos was still young. And that was part of the fraction of the family.
She was a conflict journalist, too,
she was a
herself in her own right.
Wow.
Yeah, they went together after college and got married and did their thing, but then Mike continued his career and she was home raising the family, and Mike was never home. He was always covering some war. He was in some foreign country, risking his life. And so Carlos and Mike decide to do this, and then they go tell Carlos's mother, who is not Mike's wife, she's his ex-wife, and she's like, "You selfish." And so I think maybe now that he's home and he made it through it, they're talking again. But it's a rather difficult subject.
You know, it's that fine line between insanity and genius. The fact that they did it, became the only father and son journalist to ever embed together. Then they won, some of the material won a Nightline Emmy. It won the News Story of the Year, and they won two. And they became the only father and son team to ever win an Emmy for the same story ever. So only father and son to embed, only father and son to win an Emmy, two together. Mike immediately donated his to OU, just like the soldiers don't like getting the medals. I mean, they're proud and honored to do it, but usually when they get a medal, it's a very bad day for their buddies. Right? So Mike took the Emmys and just brought them to OU, very proudly donated them, and he's, again, a journalist there, a big professor there.
And that News Story of the Year that they won last year is like winning Best Picture Oscar in our business. It is the Emmy in the news business that you want to win every year. And usually CBS has a stranglehold on that with 60 Minutes. Nightline won it because of the footage. And it's 2 minutes of the footage of our third act of our film. 2 minutes of the footage. And what happened with that, which is a great story, by the way, is that Mike was pinned down in the side of a mountain at 8,000 feet in Pakistan-Afghanistan border in the Kunar province, where all the Taliban's weaponry, camps, fighters, everything is there. We got pinned down. Our guys got pinned down. They expected it to be a one-day mission. It turned into 9 days. The Taliban had us surrounded. He was on the side of the mountain and thought he was going to die. And he's feeding these stories back to ABC. And that's what won News Story of the Year. And that's the entire third act of our film.
It also leads into something with ABC. So they won, so the film was made in ABC's arm's length. You know, they've got journalists in it, and it's obviously supporting something where they won some Emmys. It doesn't mean they'll support it, but when you are able to go in and you have journalistic integrity and you go to the news network and you say, hey, this is about your people and your guys and your network, and you guys took a risk and it paid off, it gives you an advantage to have them come on board and help you. And as filmmakers, the important thing with that was ABC does have Nightline. So they're going to do stuff with us coming up on the anniversary of the Emmy-winning show. Nice. And they have Good Morning America, and they have Diane Sawyer, and Diane Sawyer's in it. Diane Sawyer and ABC, we have their logo. They gave us rights because, and they normally don't. They never give the rights to do that in a film like this. But when they saw the film, they were like many other people around it, they were like, we want to be part of it, and we can bring something to the table that, you know, we didn't have to pay for, you know, because usually your PR team, and we have an amazing one, but usually your PR team is pushing to get those stories. We were able to walk the film right into Ben and his team and say, hey, you know, we've got this. And because of Mike Boettcher and because of Carlos, they both work at ABC now. They're peers at ABC. So they gave us that, which is amazing.
All right, I think we can get a couple more questions in, but we're running out of time. The next question comes from @CKukahiko, and he says, what exactly is your distribution plan, and what are your ambitions for the film?
Like I said, we're staying away from the documentary. We never call it a doc. It puts us in a box when you're talking about a doc. So we are positioning it the way you saw that trailer being positioned. It's a big, groundbreaking feature film. And we raised our own P&A because we want to do it the way we want to do it. We don't want to give it to a studio and just sit back and hope and pray they do the right thing. So we're all the way through managing this whole process with a lot of amazing agencies and partners and consultants. And our goal is to have a breakout feature film that does something that's never been done before. We've gone to the exhibitors, so we've gone to the Regals and the AMCs and the Cinemarks. Those three organizations represent 80% of all the screens in the country. We physically went there. We showed them the trailer. We talked about how we're positioning and messaging this film. And then we showed them the film. And after it was a big risk. It was a very big risk. And after each of those meetings, they all came out and said, wow, we got it. We've never seen anything like it. We love what you're doing. You are not going to be in art house theaters like traditional documentaries. You are going to be in the multiplexes. You're going to be in the big 24-screen theaters. You're going to be in the big ones because we see this as Lone Survivor, but real.
We have one last question today. Thank you guys so much for all of your time.
Thank you for having us.
This last one I think is really less about filmmaking and more about you guys and the subject matter of the film. And the asker would like me to get you to talk about the suicide rates of the soldiers after they come home and some of the charities that you're working with and what they're doing to help those soldiers.
When we set out to make the film, the initial basically mandate that we came up with together and with Mike and Carlos was we're making the film because when you go thank a soldier or a Marine, an airman or a sailor or someone in the Coast Guard that's been in combat situation and they'll all deal with it, you would know why you were thanking them. That's the whole mandate. We would make something that would show you this is why. And when we started getting underneath the hood and finding out there's so many different issues with PTSD and traumatic brain injuries and the fact that navigating the government system can be very, very difficult, especially for the non-commissioned guys and girls, that we're realizing there's a suicide rate of 22 a day, and we think it's higher, right? We've been told in the last week it's higher. A gold
back here in this country.
So 22 soldiers every day.
Every day in this country are committing suicide, more than are being killed in Afghanistan in a war zone.
Yeah, it's flipped.
And that we can't have that. We can't have that as a society. We can't have that as a country. And I think where David was going was, we're very proud that this film, the soldiers and Marines and their families have termed it digital medicine. They, just like Terry Burgess is going to be in the church tomorrow giving a testimony that this film saved his life and gave him a reason to live, we have other widows and soldiers and Marines saying this film has given them a new lease on life. It's allowed them to cope. Look, guys come home, they're tough guys. They don't want to talk. They don't talk about it. If you have anybody in your family that's in the service, whether it's back World War II or Vietnam, you're shaking your head, they don't talk about it. They never talk about it because they can't relate. They can't explain it. What this does is it takes you there. So it sparks dialogue within the family. The husband and wife start to talk. The kids get to realize what's going on. And that's the first step. And they cry and they break down for the first time. It becomes a big therapy session, basically. So they're calling it digital medicine. And we know it saved lives. We know it saved marriages. We know that there's 2 Gold Star widows who lost their husbands that we have aligned with a charity. They have actually taken possession of their mortgage-free home for life. Them and their children now have a home to live in where they can restart their life. So we're very proud of those type of things.
What is a Gold Star?
Well, a Gold Star, there's 3 stars that it really started in World War II, and families would hang a banner in their window, and you have a blue star if you have a family member serving in a combat theater. You have a silver star if you have a family member that has been wounded in action. And a Gold Star, unfortunately, is something you don't want to get, and it's when you have a loved one that's KIA, killed in action, and you get a Gold Star. And it's a way that they literally in World War II would designate families, and you could show pride of having your loved one serving. And you all saw Private Ryan, right? The family had 4 Gold Stars in the window. So it's the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of our country. The family has paid.
Thank you so much, Christian and David, for everything that you've done on behalf of sharing all this information with our filmmakers, but also on behalf of the soldiers and their families. I have a cousin who just got back safely from Afghanistan.
Tom,
he was a ranger.
Service.
I will.
We know.
Yeah, thank you guys for making this movie for them.
Awesome.